Hey everyone and welcome to Storytime. My name is Jake and today we're going to be looking at the subreddit r/maliciouscompliance, where people conform to the letter but not the spirit of a request. The weirdo has had enough. Maybe don't rely so heavily on a kid you bully next time. So, the middle school I went to was a bit non-traditional. It was a private school, meaning it wasn't exactly constrained by the same rules as a public one. And so it got away with doing things quite a bit differently than what most schools, at least to my knowledge, did at that age. One of the biggest things in this area was our science fair project. This project wasn't just the classic baking soda volcano crap. Oh no, this stuff was more equivalent to a capstone project. Think I'm kidding? We were given the whole year to work on it. Some kids had known about it beforehand and been working for longer. And it was worth, I kid you not, a good 85% of our science grade for the entire year. There were kids who legit didn't do anything in science class because they knew it was the project, not the class, that mattered. And it was competitive too. Every project would be judged, and if you did well at the school fair, you'd get sent to a regional fair. And if you did well there, you'd get sent to the statewide fair, which was a big deal. Now, given how huge this project was, we were supposed to do it in partners at the very least. Though the teacher actually recommended working in larger groups of up to 5 people, just because of how much work this project entailed. You probably already know where this is going, but before I get to the action of it, there's a few things you need to understand, because I want you to all know that what I did wasn't just out of nowhere, it was the result of accumulation of BS. So, ever since I was old enough to actually display a personality beyond screaming flesh gremlin, I've been noticeably, to use a term I kind of hate, quirky. There were things that were just a bit out of place when I was a toddler. Things like seemingly inexplicable tantrums and overly aggressive behaviour at times. But nothing that couldn't be chalked up to just kids being kids, with the assumption that I'd grow out of it. Well, I didn't. While I had at least indeed grown out of the actual tantrum part, the underlying problem was still there, only becoming more and more obvious as I got older. I got upset over things that seemed pointless to other people. I didn't understand jokes or sarcasm very well. Other kids said I was creepy because I wouldn't look them in the eyes and was generally pretty quiet and robotic for an 8-year-old. And I often blurted out some pretty weird and upsetting stuff with no real warning, unable to read the mood and know that it was inappropriate. We found out later, much to the surprise of absolutely no one who actually knew me, I am autistic. However, this wasn't officially diagnosed until I was in my sophomore year of high school, likely due to the fact that I am both high functioning and a girl. For some reason, this stuff doesn't get noticed as often in girls. So, up until then, I was just a weird, hyperdense kid that nobody really knew what to make of. At best, I was entertaining. There were often other kids who seemed to find my social disconnect to be cute, much in the way that a duckling with a limp is cute, and kept me around as sort of a mascot. A funny little oddity for them to enjoy. At worst. Well, you know how it goes. Nothing ever got physical or anything like that. Quite possibly because I hit puberty at a pretty young age and was therefore a fair bit bigger than most of my peers, and had a known record for getting violent when pushed. Story for a different day. But they were terrible all the same. As I mentioned before, a lot of things that seemed inconsequential to other people really bother me. And that's what these kids tended to capitalise on. They'd stand uncomfortably close to me, and or bump into me constantly, knowing full well that I hate being touched. They'd move my stuff and sit in my area, knowing how territorial I was. They'd purposely chew extra loudly and smack their lips, knowing I hate the sound. You get the idea. All really petty stuff that they couldn't really get in trouble for, and that I would get mocked for complaining about, because it was your own fault for being so sensitive. Well, fast forward back to the early fall of 7th grade, and my science teacher says we should partner up for our projects. I was doing my thing of sitting there in stone cold silence, because no way in hell am I actually going to ask someone. Way too awkward. When this girl, who I'll call Katie, because that was her actual name, and I hate her, so what do I care, walks up to me and basically announces that we're going to be partners. Doesn't ask, mind you, just sort of declares it. Now, Katie was one of the people who took the most pleasure in messing with me. She went the extra goddamn mile to get up in my personal space, blow down the back of my neck, touch my stuff, etc. and then laugh when I got upset. So you may be wondering, why would she want to partner up with someone she so clearly disliked? Exploitation, of course. On top of being a general freakazoid, I was actually pretty damn book smart, making me the perfect person to use for this type of project. Deep down, I knew that's what she was doing, but I wanted so desperately to be liked that I went along with it and didn't protest the partnership at all. I emailed her that night asking politely about some pretty basic questions. What was our subject going to be? How were we going to divide up the work? Etc. And I get no response. She ignores me in class, and I'm too shy to push it in person, so I keep emailing her until finally, after about 4 days, I get a response. It was a short reply, something to the effect of, "Oh my god, you're being so annoying. Would you just shut up and leave me alone already? Jeez." It wasn't as though I'd been expecting otherwise, but still, it hurt. Except this time, I'd finally had enough. This girl wanted me to leave her alone? My pleasure. I tell my science teacher, Mrs. G, the next day that Katie and I were no longer partners, and that I'd be doing the project on my own. She tried to talk me out of it, saying that this was a ridiculous amount of work for one person to do all by themselves. But I told her I wanted to work alone, so she let me. I told Katie about none of this. Over the next several months, I went hard on this project. I ended up choosing to study behavioral science, specifically choosing to experiment on learning effectiveness in various environments. I went out and got rats to use in my experiment. Don't worry, I loved those little suckers, and they were not at all harmed. I researched daily. I taught myself standard deviation and basic statistics. The works. I ended up writing a 32-page paper on the topic, along with creating a big old 3-sided presentation board with my graphs from each individual experiment displayed proudly on the surface. This whole time, I didn't say a single word to Katie. Well, the day before the science fair, and Katie walks up to me, super casual, and asks, "Hey, so how is our project coming along?" I pretend to look surprised. "Our project? What do you mean?" She looks at me like I'm stupid. Our science fair project? You know, the one that's due tomorrow, that's worth like our entire grade in the class?" She said it with the same speed and intonation that one would use when talking to a mentally handicapped toddler. "No, I know about the project," I said blandly. "I was just wondering what you meant by our project. We aren't working together." Getting angry, she replied, Yes we are. I told you on the first day, remember? We're partners." "Yeah, and then you told me to leave you alone, and never said anything about the project. So I assumed you didn't want to work together anymore. I told Mrs. G, and she said it was okay for me to work by myself. So I did," I replied. Her face goes white, then red. "What?" she barks. "You mean you bailed on me? How could you?" "You said that you didn't want to be partners." "I never said that, you dumbass!" "Katie," Mrs. G snapped. "We don't use that kind of language in here, especially not directed at our fellow students." Katie was about to keep talking when the bell rang, and I dashed out. She would have followed me, had Mrs. G not pulled her aside, presumably to discipline her. The science fair comes around the next day, and I pull up proudly with my stuff, ready to roll. I slap my monster of a paper down on a very proud looking Mrs. G's desk, and set up my table in the cafeteria, getting ready for the judges to start making their rounds. I'm in the middle of trying to get my stupid poster board to stop falling over when Katie storms up to me. I don't remember exactly what she said, as I was full on ignoring her, but it was a lot of insults and threats and the like, as well as multiple demands that she be allowed to take credit for the project as well, because she never actually ended the partnership. I basically just laughed in her face. She goes away when the judges come through, probably because she knew how suspicious it'd look if she actually got caught arguing with me like this. And I'm given a gold by the judges, who seemed very impressed by my project. A gold means I get to move on to regionals. Naturally, Katie tries to circumvent me and take credit for it anyway by just going to Mrs. G, claiming that, "Oh, haha, Ferrell just forgot to put my name on it too while she was editing." But Mrs. G was having none of it. She very clearly told Katie that I had approached her months ago, asking to work solo. To which Katie argued that I hadn't told her I'd be doing that. She dropped that lie so quickly. So it wasn't fair. Again, Mrs. G just coldly replied that essentially it was Katie's own fault for not bothering to check in, as well as adding that if she seriously hadn't known, that indicated she'd be planning on just making me do it all and claiming credit anyway, which obviously wasn't allowed. Temporarily defeated, Katie slunk away. She made sure to amp up the making my life hell thing, but I found I didn't care as much because she was just being petty and desperate, and it was actually kind of fun to watch her be so upset. I won gold at regionals, then went on to state, where, oh my god, I won gold again. I tell you this not to flex, okay, maybe a bit to flex, but to highlight just how much work I put into this, as well as just how infuriated Katie must have been with all this. When our project grades came out of this, when stuff really hits the fan, I got like a 99.8%, with that 0.2% taken off for a stupid error on the axis labels of one of my graphs. Katie got a big fat 0. Pretty much the day after these grades came out, I get called to the office. There, waiting for me alongside the principal, are Katie, her furious looking mother, and exasperated Mrs. G. From the moment I walk in, both Katie and her mum glare at me as if I've just murdered their firstborn and they were intending to return the favour. I sit, and I'm told a remarkable tale. Apparently, Katie had switched tactics from her earlier "forgot to include my name" lie, and was now trying to claim that she'd done all of the work, only to have me swoop in and put my name on it, then cut her out completely. She had crocodile tears running down her face and everything. Her mother rubbed her back comfortingly, trying to burn holes in my skull with her eyes, and Mrs. G looked ready to slap her. Naturally, I explained my side of the story, with Mrs. G backing me up and vouching for the fact that I'd said I was working alone months ago. Of course, this wasn't enough. Katie's mum then tried to argue that I had unfairly kicked Kate from the partnership and that I should be punished for it, even going so far as to suggest that I should be, I kid you not, expelled for sabotaging Katie by refusing to work with her. I calmly replied that actually, Katie had been the one to cut ties with me, and I had just been doing what I thought she wanted. She called me a liar, of course, so I pulled out my school laptop and showed her the multiple emails I'd sent asking Katie about the project, as well as the email Katie sent back telling me to shut up and leave her alone already. Silence. After a moment, Katie tries to recover, claiming that she'd just been mad I was emailing her constantly, and that she hadn't actually said that she wanted to stop being partners, but she didn't really have a leg to stand on here. She failed the class, and I take no shame in admitting that watching her cry her eyes out at the end of the year over it gave me a truly euphoric sense of happiness. That was one of the most satisfying stories I've ever heard on this subreddit. What did you guys think of that one? Hey everyone, I hope you're all having a really good day and that you enjoyed that video. If you did, please do leave a like on it as it helps out a lot. And also comment down below what your favourite subreddit is. If you want to check out some other videos, then click on screen right now, or check out the playlist down below. But thank you again, and I will see you very soon.